Hi class, welcome to my disease video. I was assigned Bacillus anthracis as my pathogen, so that's what I'm going to be talking about. Most of you probably already know what that is from all the discussions we've had, but if not, I'm still willing to bet that you've at least heard of the disease that my pathogen causes, which is anthrax. Now, first off, Bacillus anthracis is a gram-positive rod that has the capability of forming spores, or endospores. I'm sure most of you first heard of anthrax when it became a mainstream concern back in 2001, when just a week after the 9/11 attacks, mail that was laced with anthrax endospores was sent out to government offices, media companies, and it ended up killing 5 people and infecting 17 others. But beside my pathogen being used as a bioweapon or for bioterrorism, the majority of cases, even to this day, still do occur naturally. Naturally, Bacillus anthracis is found in soil. So the people that are usually at most risk to getting anthrax tend to be occupational workers. So these are usually workers that deal with livestock, live animals, raw hides, wools, things like that. Anyone that's around or working with the animals that actually graze in the very soil that could potentially have the endospores of Bacillus anthracis is at risk of being exposed to it. Thankfully, here in the US, anthrax really isn't something we are concerned of, especially naturally. Thanks to modern medicine and vaccinations, anthrax is on a decline globally, but there are still regions of the world, and especially developing countries, and they tend to be in certain regions of Africa and Southeast Asia, where they're still dealing with anthrax. These spores of Bacillus anthracis can get into the body one of 3 ways and still cause infection, and because of that, there's 3 different types of anthrax. There is gastrointestinal, pulmonary, and cutaneous anthrax. The symptoms for gastrointestinal anthrax include abdominal pain, diarrhea. It could also cause a bloody stool in a patient. Gastrointestinal anthrax is not the most common. It's actually quite rare, but it is bad in that it kills on average 25% of people that are diagnosed with it, and that's with treatment. Pulmonary anthrax is the bad one. That is the one you do not want to get. On average, half of the people that are diagnosed with it unfortunately don't make it, and that's with treatment. The symptoms for pulmonary anthrax include coughing, chest pain. The bad thing with it is by the time a patient experiences the symptoms of pulmonary anthrax, the condition is often so great that medical treatment can only do so much, and that's the reason why there's such a high mortality rate for patients that get pulmonary anthrax. The most common form of anthrax is also, thankfully, the most easily curable, and that's cutaneous anthrax. Symptoms for that include itching, and irritation in the area that was affected. This can happen very easily for those occupational workers I was talking about, farmers that work with the livestock and out in the field. If they have an open wound or a cut that's exposed to these endospores, they can easily get a cutaneous infection. Cutaneous anthrax accounts for a little more than 95% of all anthrax cases, which is good because it's also, like I said, the most easily curable. And a little fun fact, anthrax historically was referred to as wool sorter's disease. So before they actually identified what anthrax was and what caused it, it was called wool sorter's disease for all the workers that would sort wool, and they were known to be at risk for coming down with this illness that later was discovered by Robert Koch. So familiar name you probably recognize. In 1875, he discovered Bacillus anthracis, and a year later proved that Bacillus anthracis was the cause for the disease in the livestock that we now call anthrax. A few years later, Robert Koch and Louis Pasteur developed a vaccine for anthrax. Nowadays, anyone that is exposed to anthrax, whether they inhale it, they eat it, or get an infection the most common way through cutaneous anthrax, is administered an antibiotic, and those can include ciprofloxacin, doxycycline, erythromycin, vancomycin, or penicillin. And hopefully I said those right. Anthrax can easily be tested for by having blood work done. So they'll draw blood, send it to a lab, and when they see Bacillus anthracis in the blood, or more specifically the spores, they know that the patient is infected. And one last thing I'd like you to know, now that you know a little more about anthrax, is it is not contagious. So as bad as this disease can be at times, thankfully, it does not spread through contact on surfaces. It is not airborne. It is very difficult to catch anthrax from another person. And really the only way you could do it is if you were in direct contact with infected mucous membranes or pus or any fluid discharge from that infected patient and got it directly in an open wound or a cut of yours. So it's very difficult to catch it from another person. That is, once it's already infected someone. It was a completely different case with the mail letters that were sent in 2001, because those were letters that had a massive amount of spores laced on them, just waiting to be touched and breathed in by the people opening those letters. So that's dangerous. And as you can see in these pictures, the PPE that these guys have to protect themselves from these dangerous endospores. But once they are inside someone and have already infected them, it is very difficult to catch it from that person. And here's a couple of pictures that we were told to include in our video. This is the first one that I used in the very first discussion of the class, and I have a couple others here. And what was cool is I actually found the original black and white versions of the SEM micrographs, and I have the colored ones here as well. The other one zooms in even further, and you can catch even more detail of the endospores. But yep, I'll cycle through these so you can see them and enjoy.